Hi everyone, it's Amin here. Welcome back to my channel and I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone is still staying safe and staying healthy. And today I'm doing another Q&A video. I asked my Instagram followers to ask me their questions about being in a long distance relationship. And as you can imagine, being a South Asian, it's very taboo for me to even talk about dating and relationships on my channel. So if any family members are watching, please stop watching. But jokes aside, I'm going to be talking about my experiences being in a long distance relationship, which has been a really long time. So just to give you some background information, I have been with my significant other, with my partner, for about 7.5 years. So we've been together since we were in high school, but we've also been in some form of long distance for the majority of our relationship. So I want to say more than 5 of the 7 years have been in a long distance situation. So I personally feel like I have a lot of experience going through 5 years of being long distance and honestly not having an idea of when that's going to end. So I thought I would answer some people's questions, maybe give some advice along the way, and hopefully at some point in the future I might be able to have my partner on my channel, but as of right now, he is very camera shy and refuses to be in any of my videos. So that'll just have to be a later treat. But for now, it's going to be all me and all of my thoughts and opinions. I even asked him for his insight and his inputs into the questions I received, but he had nothing to say. So that just goes to show our different personalities. But anyway, let's get into the questions. So I have a list of questions that I have been asked. So like I said, my partner and I have been together since high school, and for university, I decided that I was going to move out and go somewhere outside of the Toronto area for school. And then after that, I decided I wanted to pursue my master's, and now I'm living in a different country, and that just increases the distance even more. So the first question I have is, was it always a given you guys would do long distance, or was there a conversation about it beforehand? So this is a really interesting question because, like I said, we have been together since high school, and I always knew that I wanted to move out for undergrad, for university, but I just knew that I had bigger things to do and that I wanted to live life independently and kind of figure things out on my own. So I'm pretty sure he always knew that, and even from then on, I've always been really independent, kind of always wanted to do my own thing. So I feel like in the back of his mind, he probably knew that I was gonna go somewhere. And then after high school, he decided to stay home and complete his education while living at home. And then I moved an hour away. So it wasn't that long, but I don't recall having any formal conversation about what would happen. Like, obviously I knew the schools that he was applying to, and he knew the schools that I was applying to, and that I honestly only applied to schools that would require me to move out. So we kind of knew going into it that I was not gonna be at home. And it honestly was such a transition from seeing each other 5 days a week in high school to like seeing each other like once a month or like once every couple of weeks. So it definitely was difficult in the beginning, and then we kind of got used to it. And then as I literally got further and further, we got to see each other less and less. So I wouldn't say that I had some kind of formal conversation about it. It was always just assumed. And even when I was applying to my master's, he knew pretty much the entire time that I was probably going to have to move to the US just because of how competitive it is for genetic counseling programs. So I was just like, hey, FYI, I'm applying to these programs. And he was like, okay, cool. Which is something that I really value in my relationship, the fact that I have my own independence and he never really tells me what I can and can't do. And as like a very strong independent woman, I would not do well with someone who tells me what I can and cannot do. So he just kind of accepts the way things are, and then we figure it out going forward, and it has worked for us. But like I said, we've definitely had some struggles, and it took a long time to find something that works for us, and we're constantly adjusting and changing. So that was a very long answer to the first question. I think I answered some of the other questions I got as well. Another question I got was, what's the communication split? For example, text versus FaceTime. So I want to say that we talk all the time. Like, I'm constantly like messaging him about what I'm doing throughout the day, and then he doesn't reply as much. I'm just like an oversharer, as you could tell by the title of this channel. So I like sharing a lot and he just doesn't share as much, which is just another personality difference, but we're constantly communicating all the time. And I would say ever since I moved to the US, we have been able to do more video calls. But before that, when I was in undergrad, an hour away, I don't think we ever really, well, we did, but like it just wasn't as common to do video calls because I saw him like every other week or once a month, so it wasn't that bad. But I do remember last year when I moved to New York, and that was the longest we'd ever gone without seeing each other, was 5 months. So I was gone from August to December, and I remember feeling so homesick for so many different reasons. And maybe like it possibly could just be the distance and adjusting to a new country and all of these other things. And at that time, I remember that he was in the process of moving, so he didn't even have his own room, so we couldn't actually ever really talk on the phone or video or anything. And that was really, really hard, especially with all the changes of being a graduate student, moving to a different country, not having friends and family around me. That was a really hard time, and like it was pretty rocky, but it took, like, eventually we got through it. And I feel like that was like the most difficult part or difficult time in our relationship, and the fact that we were able to jump over that hurdle gave me a lot more confidence in what we could achieve going forward, which I had no doubt in my mind, if I'm being honest. Like, we were already like 6 years in at that point, so I'd already given too much effort and energy into this relationship, and I wasn't going to just give it up because I was feeling a bit homesick. So that's just my outlook on it. Another question I got was, does your communication improve since you need to ensure your needs are being met through distance? So this is a great question, and I remember this one scenario which I feel like would illustrate how much my communication has improved. So I remember in high school, we were like, I think like a year into our relationship, and it was like grade 12 or something, and we got into like our first argument. And like our relationship, we had a very long honeymoon phase, like a year and a half, where we were just so nice to each other, and like he would never tell me to shut up, and I would never tell him that he's stupid. Like it was just a really long honeymoon phase. And like, if you know me, you're like, how were you so nice to someone for so long? I don't know what to say. But anyway, so this was like our first real fight, and I remember I was at school and I got pretty upset, and then I like basically went to the bathroom and cried. And one of my friends followed me, and they were like, are you okay? And then he obviously knew I was upset. And I just think about how in long distance you really can't do that. Like, I can't just be like going to the bathroom and crying without saying anything, because he's not gonna know I'm in the bathroom crying because he didn't see me go to the bathroom crying. So I have to be a lot more vocal about my emotions, and sometimes it's hard because sometimes I get a little passive aggressive and I'm just like saying all these mean things, but in reality I'm just hurt. So I think I personally have been able to communicate my feelings a bit better, so that he knows that what you said here hurt my feelings. And especially like over text or over messages, like you never know what the person's actually trying to say, and sometimes the tone is a little bit off. So I want to say that my communication has improved, and I definitely want to say his communication has improved. If you can tell, he's not a very like emotional, sensitive person. So for him to be like, you hurt my feelings, takes a lot of effort. And I've definitely seen a lot of improvement over the past 7.5 years on both ends. So yeah, I definitely say my communication has improved. Another question I got was, what's the most important thing about being in a successful long distance relationship? And similar to what I just said, I think communication is so important, and not only like basic communication, but being good at communicating and finding what works for both of you, because someone might need a lot more affirmations and the other person is fine without talking for a long time. So it's also like the quantity of communication, the quality of communication, the time you're spending together. You have to be able to kind of find a happy medium, and it takes a long time. Like I said, like there have been some phases of our relationship that have been really rocky, and it's usually been at the beginning of a transition phase. So like in my first year or my first semester of undergrad, when I moved out, I remember that being a really difficult phase, and like having to adjust to not seeing each other 5 days a week. And then, like I said, my first year of my master's, when I moved away, that was really difficult because again, we went from seeing each other like like once every other week, once a month, to literally not seeing each other for 5 months and then having other logistical concerns with not being able to actually talk on the phone. So those parts I would say have been rocky, but communication is really important in all of that, even if it's just over text, if that's all you can do. And luckily we have been in the same time zone the entire time, but if you have that whole time zone factor, like that is a whole other situation. So it'll definitely take time and it'll take effort, but if you're willing to put that in, I think that it will be worthwhile. And then another question I got, which I kind of, I guess, alluded to, is what is the hardest part about long distance? And for me, honestly, like I am a very needy person. So I'm always like, hey, can you tell me you love me? Like, can you tell me nice things? Like, I need to hear affection all the time. And it's really hard because he is more of a type of person that shows his affection through hanging out together or like, I don't know, doing nice things for you. And it's harder when you're a long distance to do all those things. So that's been the hardest part for me, is just like my love language and versus his love language, and then being able to figure that out in a way that is going to work for both of us, but also when we're in different countries. So like I said, like it's always transitioning, and I mentioned in some of my other videos that I'm graduating in May, so I'll be moving potentially somewhere else. And then I know we'll have to like figure out that whole transition phase again, which I think is probably going to be easier because the older we get, the more we're able to do. Like we might actually be able to travel to see each other or travel like together, which is like a huge deal. But yeah, so that would be the hardest part. And then how has your relationship been strengthened? This was a really interesting question. I hadn't thought about it, and I asked my partner for his input, and some things he said were useful and some things were not. But definitely one of the things that we talked about was just the prioritizing each other, which I always struggled with because like I said, I need that constant affection. So I always felt like he wasn't giving me priority because he wasn't talking to me all the time, or he wasn't saying affectionate things. But in reality, the way that he prioritizes me is different than the way that I prioritize him. Like again, like love languages, like that whole thing comes into play. But yeah, so I guess like having a discussion about what it means for someone to show that they prioritize you, because it's one thing to be like, yes, this person is my priority, but it's another thing so that the other person can actually realize and recognize and feel that they're a priority. So I would say that over time, like there have been small things that we try to do for each other to show that we're still thinking about each other and that we still care. So yeah, that would be my answer to that. And then another question I got, which is also interesting, is have you ever felt like your relationship has been invalidated because of the distance? And I personally cannot say I've ever felt invalidated. Like I said, being in a South Asian community, I am not very open about my relationship, and I'm not allowed to be very open about my relationship because that's just the way our culture is. So the fact that we're long distance really doesn't make any difference to my family or my friends. It's just like that's what it is. And it's actually, I want to say, easier for us that we don't have to see each other all the time, because it's hard for us to see each other all the time and like be able to get that permission from our parents, and then try to be careful so that nobody sees us, and like all these other things. So I personally haven't ever felt invalidated. If anything, I feel like we are a lot stronger because of the fact that we have to be so far apart. But not that I want to say that that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I definitely do not want to do that. I cannot do that for the rest of my life. But yeah, I don't ever think I felt invalidated. The last question I have is, do you have any advice for couples that are just starting their long distance relationship? I think I would say that don't give up right away. Like I saw some questions from people that said like they felt like they need to break up with their partner before they moved because they were just sure they wouldn't be able to do it. But I would say give yourself a chance. People are generally more resilient than they think they are. So give yourself a chance. You might be able to work it out. It'll definitely take a lot more effort on both parties, but at the end, if you think it's worth it, I say that there's no harm in trying. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, but like that's just the way life is. But don't write it off just because it seems hard. And if it is hard for you, then maybe it's not worth it for you. But like I said, just try to put some effort into it. You might have to be a little bit creative in the way that you do things. So like, for example, we are always like before like teleparty or Netflix party was a thing, we have been watching shows together online for a really long time. So like it took us like 2 years to get through like Fresh Prince, and then another 3 years to get through The Office because we have to be at the same schedule all the time. So, and now we're watching Schitt's Creek and it's taking a really long time, but like you have to be creative in the way that you do things. So before, like I said, before Netflix party was a thing, we were already doing our own kind of Netflix party. And then just being creative, finding out things that work for you, and then you have to be able to trust the other person as well. And I personally never had a problem with that, and I don't think my partner's ever had a problem with trusting me. But if that's something that you're concerned about, you'll definitely have to communicate that in the beginning and see if you're willing to put in that blind trust, I guess I want to say, and put in that effort. So with that, I'm going to end this video. I hope that it was helpful, and if you have any other questions for me, definitely let me know. If you want me to do more videos like this, I would be more than happy. If you want my partner to be featured in this video, let me know in the comments below so I can convince him to get his butt over here. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a huge thumbs up. If you want to see more videos from me, definitely subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.